Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Pope. I'm the Executive Director of the Seattle and Bellevue 2030 districts. We are really excited to be kicking off our 2024 education calendar with a discussion on EV charging and fleet electrification. Thank you all for joining us. And yeah, we're really excited to get started here. I want to take just a quick moment to thank all of our members and supporters. You can see a hopefully comprehensive list of their logos here. But we are very happy to have a lot of support from our building sustainability community and feel very lucky to be able to produce this kind of programming for everyone, just to learn a little bit more about how we can reduce our energy, water, and transportation emissions. And today is a big part of that. For those that don't know, the Seattle 2030 district was the first of what are now 24 2030 districts spread across North America. We're in places like New York and Detroit and Philadelphia and Toronto and Dallas. But we're born out of Architecture 2030's goals around building sustainability, and we now represent about 580 million square feet of commercial, multifamily, and municipal real estate. So we're a growing network. We're very excited. We'll hopefully be adding 2 new districts in 2024. So stay tuned for that. But no matter where you are, there's always a way to engage with the 2030 districts. I also just wanted to shout out that we have some great upcoming events that you can also participate in. On January 24th, we're going to be touring the Georgetown Wet Weather Treatment Station, which is a great new facility that helps treat stormwater from sort of the industrial core of Seattle, which should be a really great project for everyone to get to check out. We also have our Energy Insights Forum coming up on January 30th at the Smart Building Center. We're going to be hosting back-to-back panels from city and state representatives, regulators who are going to be able to come and kind of talk about ways that folks can help hit these new building performance standards and how to really try to reduce energy usage on the demand side. So we're very excited for that. That also has a happy hour to follow. And finally, on February 21st, we are going to be touring Climate Pledge Arena. So please come out for that one. We're really excited to get to go out and check out the most sustainable arena in the world. With that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Please join me in welcoming Paul Bloom with the Breaking Barriers Collaborative, Nick Altberg from Puget Sound Energy, and Ethan Esch from Seattle City Light to talk about some of the great opportunities around this. And we're actually going in reverse order here. So Ethan is going to be kicking us off with sharing a little bit about Seattle City Light's approach for transportation electrification.
Hey.
Oh, looks like we got some. You just mute the speakers. I'm going to get started. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Riley. I appreciate you passing it off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Today, as Daniel mentioned, I'll be speaking to you about the Seattle City Light Transportation Electrification Portfolio and some of the solutions City Light has available for customers interested in electrifying their fleets, as well as electrification at multifamily housing and public charging. As they mentioned, my name is Ethan Esch. I work in collaboration with Seattle City Light. I'm a senior account manager for ICF, and we are implementing this program in partnership with the teaming partners listed here above. We have 3 offerings currently in our portfolio. As the number of electric vehicles grow in Seattle City Light's service territory, we're looking to support them in Washington's zero emission goals. To help address these goals, we're going to focus on the current programs we have available today, which are summarized here. The first program that we launched was our fleet electrification program, which consists of fleet advisory services, EVSE rebates, or electrical vehicle support equipment rebates, and make-ready incentives. The second program that we launched was the multifamily EV charging program. This also consists of advisory services, site assessments, and charger rebates. We'll get into the details on all these offerings as we go through our deck, as long as make-ready incentives that will be available later this year for multifamily. And then the third and final program that we have launching this year is our public program, which we will also discuss later on. Moving along and focusing on the bulk of our presentation today, the fleet electrification program. And this program, as mentioned, is designed to support fleets in their transition to electrification. We offer substantial financial incentives and expert guidance to reduce the cost and the complexity that's involved with deploying EV infrastructure and EV fleets in Seattle. As mentioned, there's 3 different offerings. The first step really being with our fleet advisory services. The fleet advisory services includes customized fleet assessment reports that can be tailored to your fleet. So whether your fleet be 300 plus vehicles or even 1 vehicle, only takes 1 vehicle to participate, and we can accommodate that fleet analysis to your business and your goals. We also have charger rebates available for non-residential fleet customers, and these include on-road and non-road chargers. So non-road being those TRUs and electrical forklifts, and we'll have a table and incentives broken out later as well. And then the last and final one, the Make Ready incentives, which are currently available to EJ communities, and we provide assistance in upgrading the electrical infrastructure necessary to support your electrification journey. Please note that funding for the Make Ready currently is limited and only available to those operating heavily in EJ communities or where their businesses are found in EJ communities. Highlighting more of the fleet electrification program, as mentioned, the fleet advisory services. These really, again, are customized to your fleet, and we take recommendations and work with you to identify incentives and grants to support you in this journey. The second part is the charging solution incentives, which includes customer-owned chargers as well as the Make Ready incentives. So talking a little bit more about our complementary fleet analysis. During this fleet analysis, we're going to review your current fleet and you'll review it with a trusted EV advisor. You'll get a customized analysis with estimated cost savings as well as greenhouse gas reductions. So we'll give you all those metric points. It'll be in a nice clean report, and it's all taking your input and adjusting it to your goals. During this meeting, we're going to give you recommendations on EVs to improve your bottom line, the community and the environment, and those greater goals in Washington. Excuse me, I just lost my place here. In addition, we're going to work with you on the retirement schedule of ICE vehicles. Again, we can meet those goals either with an economic focus or more of a green transportation focus. Participating is complimentary. Again, it's free. It's a free offering, and it's important that you know that when you're participating, you don't have to have a current electric vehicle. All you need is 1 vehicle, and then the plan or citing a PA that you'll participate or have electric vehicle utilizing that charger in the future. The general benefits that we've seen from customers participating in this fleet advisory service are reduction in long-term cost and operational expenses, shedding light on some of these different grants and programs and how to participate and get the applications in, enhanced reputation for sustainability and innovation, as well as improved community recognition. We're going to take a look at a case study and some customers that participated in our program just in this next slide. Sound Generations is one of the first customers to participate in our program. Sound Generations assists Seattleites with a variety of community outreach programs, including Meals on Wheels and other shuttle van services tailored to older adults. To begin the process with Sound Generations, they met with our team of experts in 2022, and they began exploring cost savings and their overall carbon footprint and how to reduce that. It was very apparent from the very beginning, doing our analysis with them, that gas-powered vehicles, that compared to gas-powered vehicles, the savings and the reductions were going to be apparent, and it was going to support their transition to EVs. City Light did this by conducting a comprehensive assessment of its existing combustible engine fleet and detailing those findings in a report that's digestible and understandable for them, as well as offering a side-by-side analysis on not only the economic factors, but the environmental benefits of EVs compared to those to those gas-powered fleets. As you can see here, there's been tons of positive results of the transitions, or there will be future savings. The results in The results obviously are in favor of switching to EVs. Over a 27 period, Sound Generations could expect 1.7 million on fuel and maintenance cost, as well as not only are we highlighting these costs, but we're also highlighting the transition process that's involved in this. This includes vehicle recommendations, financial estimates that we're highlighting, as well as emission estimates that you see there with that 6,795 metric tons of CO2 eliminated. This is all contributing to not only savings, but as we mentioned, cleaner air, zero emissions, improved reliability, and overall lower fuel costs, meaning more time on the road, more opportunities to serve individual needs in our community, as well as less money spent at the pump and on the costly maintenance that often is involved with ICE vehicles that you're not going to see in EV. All that is highlighted in this report. You can also find this case study on the Seattle City Light website as well, which will be linked later in the deck. So here's this table I was talking about. It is a pure per port incentive. You must be a Seattle City Light commercial non-residential electric count holder, as well as I previously mentioned, have one vehicle and or provide written intent to purchase or lease one electric vehicle after participation in the program. As I also highlighted, it's not only the on-road vehicles we're focusing on. Oftentimes, those trucks are sitting idle, emitting greenhouse gases. So we also have a focus on non-road equipment. As you can see here, the non-road equipment charger rebates also are a per port incentive currently, and we offer charging rebates for forklift chargers, electrical standby trucks or TRUs, as well as our yard truck chargers. So when you're speaking with our fleet advisory services, make sure that our fleet advisors, make sure that you're aware that there's not only on-road incentives available, but also non-road equipment for some of those fleets or warehouses that we've been working with. For the make-ready incentives, as I previously mentioned, funding is currently limited for our first initial 2-year program. So to make sure that funding is reaching the necessary customers, we have limited participation to those fleets in EJ communities. Or if you're not in an EJ community, your business isn't. If you're operating heavily in an EJ community, you can also qualify on a case-by-case basis to participate in our make-ready program. For those who aren't familiar with the EJ communities, City Light currently recognizes EJ communities as those identified by the Washington State Department of Health Environmental Disparities map. If you go to that map, anything out of a 9 or a 10 will qualify for the program. As mentioned, you must also be a City Light non-residential customer. For the make-ready infrastructure incentives, additional financial assistance, as mentioned, is available for those EJ communities. And during that, we're going to focus on behind the meter and to the meter utility-owned make-ready infrastructure. So as the make-ready rolls out, it's a great support for those who have some of the older buildings or older fleets or need that support. Make sure you're talking to our fleet advisors to see what's the best fit for you. Not everyone needs a DC fast charger, but those incentives are available. Moving along to the multifamily charging program. Through this one here, I know we're talking about fleets today, but many of our multifamily charging programs, a lot of those public property, or excuse me, multifamily properties have fleet vehicles as well. As mentioned, only one fleet vehicle to qualify. Program benefits are the same, similar to fleet. They're going to provide resources to those structural barriers, as well as give residents opportunities to adopt EVs and reduce those greenhouse emissions in those specific dense areas, which often multifamily housings is found in. Like fleet, we have 3 different offerings for multifamily. We have advisory services. Again, these advisory services are complimentary. We'll come visit your site. We'll make sure you have capacity. Same thing for fleet vehicles. We'll come to your site, make sure that you have capacity to install the chargers, and we'll work with you. One thing to note for the multifamily, currently we only have charging available for shared parking for those level 2 chargers. Moving along, there's a breakdown here for our multifamily that can be provided. A little bit different than fleet. We don't have a per port. It's going to be per project. Something that may be a little bit more applicable to our fleet managers here is our public EV charging program. This is going to be launching later in 2024. The reason I bring this up is because often fleets, some of the smaller businesses have a greater range and they rely on that public charging to fill in the gap when they aren't able to get back to those home bases. One of the main goals of our public charging is to ensure equitable access, expand charging solutions for our communities. And there are two different offerings currently for our public charging. We have our curbside level 2 charging and our public DC charging. Both of these charging programs will introduce incentives or rebates, and it seeks to provide convenient and reliable public charging access across Seattle City Lights territory. As you can see here, we currently have 9 locations for curbside level 2 charging with expectations to expand that, as well as our public DC fast charger program with 21 fast chargers currently available, or 21 chargers at 9 sites that are currently available, excuse me. This service will provide DC fast charging next to the curb in residential neighborhoods, as well as in those business corridors where they'll really be utilized. Drivers will need to pay a per kilowatt fee to use these chargers, and the current cost for these DC fast chargers is 36 cents per day. And then for the previously highlighted curbside level 2 electric vehicle charging, that is currently at 21 cents per kilowatt hour. So that sums up our entire portfolio. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. These are the next steps in order to get in touch with us. Engage with your partners, get all the necessary stakeholders, and then we could meet you for a call. Again, it's all complimentary, and they're all work on, and we're all willing to meet you where you're at. So again, you don't have to have currently an EV fleet or even have the slightest idea. You can just call us and let us know that you have the intention or the idea of electrifying your fleet, and we can get started on that complementary fleet analysis as the first step. To do so, please feel free to contact us at any of these programs below. Myself, as well as the outreach team, manage all these inboxes, and we'll be sure to get back to you, or feel free to utilize the phone number below. And I think I will pass it to back to Daniel or Nick. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ethan. We really appreciate that. And for those that are asking in the chat, this is open to anybody. The incentives and programs that Ethan just talked about are open to anybody in Seattle City Light territory. So for those that are in Puget Sound Energy's territory, we have Nick Alberg to share a little bit about what is on offer there.
Perfect. Thanks, Daniel. And hi, everyone. My name's Nick Alberg. I'm the Fleet and Commercial Account Manager for PSE's Up and Go Electric program. So it's really my job just to be your main point of contact for anything EV related with fleets, and can kind of direct you if you have questions about multifamily, workplace, and so forth, which we'll get into here throughout these slides. So just to start, PSE, we have our strategic framework for supporting electric vehicles within our service territory. Those main pillars are advancing clean mobility and just enabling the market transformation. We're addressing the charging infrastructure gaps, making sure that we have the capacity to support these chargers long term. And that leads into plan for and manage the electric loads, just ties in with that infrastructure. And then furthering the energy equity and inclusion, really just supporting our historically disadvantaged communities and making sure that they're not left behind with this market transformation. So on that, one of the main pillars of our programs is our Empower Mobility program, where we help serve our highly impacted communities. Through this, we've done a lot of engagement through the development of these programs to understand the needs and realize that there are some pretty heavy financial barriers for these types of customers. So we've created this Empower Mobility portion of our program to help provide additional advisory services for these highly impacted communities and have enhanced incentives for them as well, which you'll get more details on that in the following slides here. So a little bit about PSE's full suite of programs. Our current offerings, you can see up top, we have our education and outreach, which is just spreading the awareness of EVs and charging. We host ride and drive events where you can test out EVs and get some hands-on experience with those, as well as some virtual events. So keep an eye out for those. Those are typically posted on like our LinkedIn and social media pages when those are happening. As far as the current program offerings, we have a multifamily charging option where building owners can host chargers for their tenants. Our fleet charging, which is the program that I'm managing that we're going to be focusing on today. Workplace charging for employee charging if you as an employer want to provide that as an option for your employees. We have workplace. And then coming up later this year, we have public charging, similar to what Ethan presented at City Lights. We're going to have both curbside and stations set up. Residential charging, we're going to be expanding that from the pilots that we did over the last few years and offering incentives on chargers. And then technology demonstrations, where we'll just be testing out new technologies that aren't quite covered within this suite of programs. So things like vehicle to grid technologies are things we'll be looking into and trying to find best practices with those. So our fleet program is mainly designed for customers trying to transition from ICE vehicles to EVs. We offer fleet consultations where I'll meet with you and go over your charging needs, where you're currently at, what your end goals are, and then find kind of the best ways to get there, utilizing our incentives. And the reason why we're doing this is just to help you lower your operational costs, meet those sustainability goals you have, and be kind of one of your kind of a service partner and help with the maintenance of these chargers if you go through our turnkey solution. And we just are hoping that you can take advantage of these incentives while they're available before because they're not going to be available forever. So just trying to get in the door now is what we're trying to help you accomplish. So what you receive through our program, we have two different options for ownership. The first option is the PSE-owned turnkey solution, where we'll cover 100% of the costs up to $10,000 per level 2 port and $125,000 per DC fast charger. And that's going to include everything from any type of capacity upgrades that are needed, all the way to the equipment installation. So we cap that at $250,000 per project. And if we exceed those incentive amounts, we just ask that you would be making up that additional cost. The second option we have is the customer-owned option, where PSE, we'd be hands-off and let you select your charging equipment, your install partner, and then you would install the equipment and come back to us once that's been done. And under this option, we'll provide up to $4,000 per level 2 port and $60,000 per DC fast charger. And then I guess eligibility, you would just need to be a non-residential PSE electric account holder. And we have a 2-vehicle requirement for our standard applicants. And that's, we're saying you need to procure at least 2 EVs by the time the equipment's installed and activated. And that's really just having like a purchase order in place right now, because we understand EVs are hard to get right now. So if you have a purchase order, that's enough for us. And the program would go for a 10-year term. Another portion of this program is load management, where that's just when you charge matters. So we have our peak times designated as 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And by charging outside of these timeframes, you can actually receive additional incentives on a monthly basis by doing so. And that depends on, this is per port that you have. So you can receive $10 for a level 2 port, and that gets all the way up to $2,000 per year, which is about $165 per month with our largest DC fast charger. So that's just a way to offset some of the costs that you'll have by increasing your electric load through charging. So one of the customers that we worked with through our pilot program that helped inform these current program offerings was Western Washington University. We installed a total of, I believe, 11 chargers across 2 locations for them, where they have a fleet depot to charge their fleet vehicles for their campus, as well as a bank of chargers for employees and staff on campus. So that was a successful project that we had through our pilots, and we're hoping to work with them moving forward in our current program offerings. And then a little bit more on our Empower Mobility offerings. If you go with the customer-owned option as an Empower Mobility customer, we offer additional or enhanced incentives to where we'll cover up to $6,000 per level 2 port and $100,000 per DC fast charger. And as Empower Mobility customers, we also offer vehicle incentives where you can receive up to $7,500 for the purchase of a light duty vehicle, $100,000 for a medium duty vehicle, and $150,000 for a heavy duty vehicle. And eligibility for Empower Mobility customers only requires 1 EV to be eligible, as opposed to 2 for our general participants. So that's just helps just bring down that barrier to entry, having only 1 vehicle. I saw one question. Yeah, so the question I'm seeing here, are there timers on the chargers? So if you plug in at 6 p.m., it doesn't start charging until 10. Yes, so we have with all of our chargers, there's going to be an online charger management platform through NLX that we give you full access to, and you'll be able to set the whatever charging cycles that you want. You'll be able to set which users are able to access those chargers. You'll have full control over those that charging equipment. And then one of the Empower Mobility customers that we've worked with has been the Muckleshoot Indian tribe. We provided them with a 50 kilowatt DC fast charger for to power their shuttle bus that we helped them procure as well. And they've been having great success with this program through us, and have had really no maintenance issues or anything. So they've been a good partner for us to work with. And then just a little bit on our workplace charging program as well that's available. If you are an employer that wants to provide charging for your employees, we can provide up to $12,000 per port for the install of those chargers, up to 10 ports. And then for the customer-owned option, we'll do 50% of the install cost, up to $2,000 per port. And then for Empower Mobility, we'll provide $4,000 and cover 100% of those costs up to $4,000. And that's our current program offering. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, or you can request a consultation on our website. If you go to pse.com/evfleets, there's a consultation request form you can fill out, and I'll get in touch with you through that, and we can start having those discussions.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. We really appreciate that. And, we're going to make these slides available to anybody who would like them. We'll send them around after the event. And also, if you have any questions, we can also provide contact information for the speakers if you'd like to learn more about these various programs and ways that you can take advantage of these incentives. We also had a question, and I'll let either Ethan or Nick tackle this one before we jump into Paul's section, but how do you determine available amperage for charging?
Can answer that, at least for City Light. In choosing the right amperage for your EV charger, there's a lot to determine. Not only are you considering your vehicle and the site, but that I would say that's covered during our site visit. We'll come out and we'll look at the panel and we'll take into account your vehicle's capacity, your charging time preferences, as well as your current electrical infrastructure. And during those site visits, we account for all that to come up with like a unique plan for your electrification process or the infrastructure you need. So I would say it varies, but the site assessment covers that. Nick?
Yeah, my answer is kind of the same. A lot of the time my answers are it kind of depends. That seems to be a common thread throughout all these conversations because there's a lot of variables, like what Ethan mentioned, cars and all that. So yeah.
Great.
And then
With that, I'm going to turn it. Oh, sorry, Ethan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then working with the utilities, we can also get the ESRs involved and work with the utility to make sure that it's going to be energized and the capacity is going to be there. So you are working with the utility to make sure that you'll have the necessary infrastructure or power being delivered there prior to working on the project.
Interestingly, PSE has also spun up a demand response program. So it'll be interesting to see, Nick, how these kind of interact with each other as we're thinking about demand responses as a holistic program for property owners and sort of tying that into the fleet electrification.
Right. And then I guess one thing I do kind of want to mention on that same topic, that that load management portion that we have built into our program, that will eventually become its own kind of EV specific rate, which will have more information on when that becomes available. So that's something we're currently working on.
Great. Well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Bloom with the Breaking Barriers Collaborative, and I'll let Paul share his own little introduction about what the Breaking Barriers Collaborative is. But this is a really cool program that, if you're interested in electrifying a whole fleet of vehicles, this is definitely something that we encourage you to participate in. So with that, take it away, Paul.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Hey, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. I know I'm probably the last thing between all of you and sitting in front of the TV to watch the Huskies play for the national championship, so I will try to go relatively quickly. I'm here to talk to you about a program called the Fleet Decarbonization Accelerator. We'll get into some detail about what that actually is. I'm going to cover a few things. Really quickly, I'll go through just why fleet decarbonization, do an overview of the accelerator program, share some of the results from our previous cohort, and then share some details around the upcoming cohort we have started on January 24th. My role is as the director of the Breaking Barriers Collaborative program. I actually work for Climate Solutions, which is a Pacific Northwest nonprofit organization. We created the Breaking Barriers Collaborative along with 4 other nonprofits, the Washington Build Back Black Alliance, Clean and Prosperous Institute, Oregon Business for Climate, and the Way Foundation. Basically, our mission is pretty simple. It's to help Pacific Northwest businesses and actually other organizations to accelerate their efforts to equitably curb their climate emissions. So we basically create programming for businesses, government institutions, and so on, who want to make progress on decarbonizing their operations, but basically are looking for some help to figure out how to do that. We are very fortunate to have multiple sponsors, including Seattle City Lights. So thank you, an extra thank you. Also, the Electrification Coalition, Pacific Power, OpConnect, and our community partners, as you can see below here, including Seattle 2030 District and Bellevue 2030. So thank you, Daniel and Riley, for being part of that. So just really briefly, why fleets? Many of you may know this already. Fleets in Washington State account for about 10% of the vehicles but they have over impact in terms of their carbon emissions, their particulate matter, nitrous oxide, and so on. You can see that these percentages are much higher than 10%. And so they have an outsized impact on both climate and health. In addition to those kind of climate and health impacts, or because of those, the government, our government in Washington State is taking action. And there are various bills that have passed that are kind of regulate the transition away from fossil fuel powered vehicles. The Clean Fuel Standard is one, the zero emissions vehicle standards, which over time by 2030, basically, or 2035 will phase out the sale of fossil fuel powered cars, and the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, which has similar types of timelines for different types of trucks. And so there's kind of I guess, a carrot and a stick component. This is more of the stick, which is forcing the phase out of ICE-powered vehicles. But there are actually, from a business standpoint, a lot of positive reasons to transition away from ICE vehicles. Major financial support from governments and utilities, and you've already seen the huge amounts of support and dollars that are available from Seattle City Light and from Puget Sound Energy. There's also a lot of studies that show that if you communicate the fact that you are operating in a more sustainable way, this can lead to higher revenues with your customers. From an employee and community standpoint, the health benefits are undeniable. But perhaps most important to a lot of businesses, or just as important, is the dollars, and that there's a lower total cost of ownership for buying and operating an electric vehicle than an ICE vehicle in many scenarios. And these next couple of slides just give you a sense of that. This is from a study done by McKinsey, a global consulting firm, showing where they kind of see, based on their analysis, the total cost of ownership hitting parity with ICE vehicles for different types of trucks and different scenarios. So you can see that for many scenarios, for light commercial vehicles, class 1 to 3 going less than 100 miles, in many cases, that's already hit parity for total cost of ownership. Medium duty, we're just about there. Heavy duty, looking a couple of years down the road, really, for that to be more widespread. But we are getting there with all these scenarios. So from a pure financial standpoint, transitioning to electric vehicles makes sense. This I actually just read recently from the Washington Post, which shows on a state-by-state basis where electricity is the most cost-effective on kind of a per-mile basis. And you can see that Washington and Oregon, the differential between the price of gas or diesel and from the price of electricity as fuel is the highest gap in the nation. So purely, again, from a financial standpoint, if you're operating in Washington and Oregon, it makes sense in many, many scenarios to be operating electric vehicles. I'm going to touch briefly on some of the tax incentives that exist in Washington State. I'm not going to go into huge detail on this, and this is in addition to the incentives that you already heard about from the utilities. 3 tax incentives I'll just mention in Washington State. One is the passenger EV tax incentive, where you can get a sales and use tax waiver of up to $15,000 for new vehicles or $16,000 for used. There are certain kind of requirements there, which I don't have the details here. I can share them with if you would like. There's another tax incentive, which is a B&O tax credit, which can cover up to 50% of the infrastructure cost and 75% of the incremental cost differential for the vehicle and 50% of a conversion cost. So B&O tax can really add up in Washington State. And this is an opportunity to offset some of that as you transition. And then lastly is the charging and battery tax incentive. where sales and use taxes can be waived for EV infrastructure, batteries, and fuel cells of EVs. So these are just a few. This doesn't even include the federal tax incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. One other thing I'm going to point out, in the last budget, Washington State budget in 2023, there was $100 million allocated to medium and heavy duty vehicle and charging incentives. There was a kind of a committee that was put together to analyze the different opportunities and how that should be spent. They made their proposal, I believe it was just a couple days ago. And so this money will hopefully start flowing within the next 12 months or so. But that's $100 million for medium and heavy duty. So there's a lot of, there's some carrots, there's some sticks. The transition can be difficult, particularly if you have a larger and more complex fleet. There's a lot of information out there, not all of it's credible, many moving parts in terms of lining up the incentives, make sure that you have the sufficient power in place, getting the vehicles. Many of these have very long lead times, up to 18 months. And so it can be challenging for an organization that isn't used to managing this kind of technology to do it on their own. And so we have created for that purpose the Fleet Decarbonization Accelerator. It's a hands-on cohort-based program for Pacific Northwest organizations that are serious about transitioning but want support. Our value proposition for organizations that go through is to help save you time and money to get the resources, the knowledge, and support you need to transition your fleet. This program is complementary to the programs that you heard about with Seattle City Light and Puget Sound Energy. In fact, they are our partners in this program and are presenting at one of the sessions. The program really combines learning and doing. And so as you go through the program, and I'll talk more about this just in a minute, you'll be learning a lot about fleet decarbonization, primarily electrification, but you'll also be building your plan as you do that. And the next session kicks off January 24th. I mentioned really these three components of the program. The three pillars of it are learning, doing, and then both of that is supported by the cohort that you go through this with and mentors that you have access to throughout the program. I'll go through each of those three pillars now. The learning component, we have worked with our partner, the Electrification Coalition, which is a national nonprofit organization that basically have deep expertise in transportation electrification. We've created a curriculum with them that starts from EV 101 all the way through to change management and workforce training, everything in between. A lot of time spent on fleet analysis and prioritization, identifying clean vehicle alternatives. We spend 3 sessions on charging infrastructure, including one session that is dedicated 100% to working with utilities. And that is where we have 5 of the largest utilities in Washington, Oregon, who come to speak about their programs, kind of like you heard about today. I mentioned that Electrification Coalition is our partner in this. They have been at this for quite a while. They have worked with many states, many cities, many private organizations on helping them to build their fleet decarbonization plans. They've also co-developed a total cost of ownership tool called the Drive tool, which is a big part of this program and that participants will be using. Also, as part of the learning, in addition to the Electrification Coalition presenting, we bring in other speakers. I already mentioned the utilities. We bring in policy experts from the Washington State Department of Commerce and Department of Ecology, as well as the Oregon DEQ, to talk in detail about the programs that they have, the incentive programs and the regulations that they have. You'll have an opportunity to meet those people, make connections with them, make those contacts. We also bring in fleet managers, people who have been down this road before and have a lot of the lessons learned that they will share with you as part of panels. So it really is a combination on the learning front, a combination of really learning the practicalities and the the hard information, and we complement that with bringing in fleet managers, people who have been through the process and really can share their lessons learned. The doing component complements the learning. Every week you will have homework assignments where you are essentially applying the learning from that week. And those homework assignments is for your own fleet. And so you will be creating the building blocks of your fleet decarbonization plan, all the way up to creating the plan, the pitch deck, and a business case behind it. The support comes through two components. One I mentioned is the cohort. What we heard back from our previous cohort was this was probably the most valuable part of the program, because you're going through it with other people that are in the same position you are facing the same problems, have made some progress on those, and maybe have different aspects and different solutions that they've come up with. We had a very diverse cohort in our last program, all the way up from a sole proprietorship, the Bajan Station, all the way up to larger organizations like the University of Washington, McKinstry, UMC. We had 3 colleges. We've had a couple of, their vehicles were also very diverse, all the way up from golf carts, all the way up to Class 8 semi-trucks, and cover a wide variety of industries. In the upcoming cohort, we have a similarly diverse set of organizations. Some of them are members of Seattle 2030, Skanska, and Lewis Crutcher are enrolled. We have some other construction companies. We have 2 colleges and universities, several members of the Washington state government, and so on. The mentorship comes from the fact that every participant in the program gets 10 hours of consulting from the experts at the Electrification Coalition. You can use those consulting hours pretty much in any way you want to do more training on the drive tool. They can do vehicle research. They can do incentives research. They can give you feedback on your plan. Those 10 hours of consulting allow you to customize the program to your needs, and they're included as part of your participation. Just really briefly before I end, some of the feedback we got from the previous cohort last year, 90% said the program met or exceeded their expectations. 95% said they were likely or very likely to recommend it to a colleague who is about to start decarbonizing their fleet. This is one that I really like. Asked a lot of questions before the program, and then asked those same questions after the program. This is one of them, was how confident participants felt in their knowledge of how to transition their fleet from gas or diesel to electric. Before the accelerator, 16% said that they agreed or strongly agreed. Afterwards, it was 90%. And then finally, 90% reported that their company or organization was further ahead in their fleet decarbonization transition than if they had not participated. So we feel like we really delivered some strong value to those organizations that participated in the program. And these are just some of the quotes, but I'm going to go through this quickly because I know I'm a little bit past time here. I want to leave time for Q&A. The next cohort we have coming up starts this January 24th. It runs through April 17th. So it's 12 weeks with 1 week off during President's Day. It's weekly 90-minute online sessions on Wednesdays from 12 to 1:30. There is a 2-day in-person session on the January 31st and February 1st. It's important to have at least one person there. And there is a very modest fee to offset a small portion of the cost of the program. For fleets under 25 vehicles, it's $950. For fleets 25 or over, it's $1,950. We do offer financial assistance. We don't want that to be a barrier. Enrollment is limited. We already have 17 and probably 18 organizations committed. We have room for probably 1 or 2 more. So if you are interested, please let me know. You can contact me at paul.bloom@climatesolutions.org. And that is it. I'll just mention one other thing is that each participating organization can have up to 4 participants. And that's all 4 are covered by that one fee. And with that, I will stop talking and happy to, I think, take questions for me or for any of the other speakers.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to call out that McKinstry and UMC, who are both 2030 district members, have participated in this program. And McKinstry is actually just got recognized by GM for the fleet that they have now ordered through GM's their electric trucks. So that's really exciting, and we're really excited to see leadership like that happening from our members in the community. McKinstry's also got some really great work that they're doing around helping other folks with fleet electrification. So the service providers are there to help support this as much as the utilities and programs like Paul's are also available. And in fact, if you're looking for an installer to help with EV or EV charging installation, I think we're joined by somebody from Luminal Lighting here today, which is one of our members who's also happy to do that. So if you're ever looking for someone to help with this process, if you're ever looking for the service providers, please let us know, and they'll be able to help you take advantage of all of these great resources that are available through the utilities and programs like Paul's. So with that, I did want to just call out, we've had a pretty good, robust conversation in the chat. There's some questions around grid capacity for some of this, which is, I'm sure, a pretty common question that our folks at the utilities get. I don't know if Ethan or Nick, you guys wanted to speak to the grid capacity issue, just because as we're imagining, an increasing number of electric vehicles hitting the roads, what is that going to look like as we're also, as we're probably not building any more dams? How are we going to be addressing some of the electric capacity issues?
Well, I can speak to it kind of from the EV perspective. We're constantly just evaluating where these chargers are going to be coming online, even if it's not someone that's going to be going through our program. And then we're providing that information to our system planners so they can then plan out future grid upgrades and where these hotbeds are going to be. So we're really just trying to gather as much information as we can about where these chargers are going to be located to then inform our future planning.
Great. And we had a couple of questions for Paul too. Paul, who is your ideal participant in the Breaking Barriers Collaborative program?
Yeah, great. And is there a way to come off screen share, Daniel? Do you know?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so the ideal, so we have a really broad range. So like in this upcoming session, we have Boeing that's participating, but we also have a couple of companies that are really, really small. I would say that the typical and ideal would be an organization that meets a couple of criteria. One is obviously you have a fleet operating in Washington or Oregon. Number two is that you have top-down support, like that you're committed to making the transition, even though you don't know how to necessarily do it, but it's really important, and we require top-down buy-in. So you have an executive sponsor. I say the third is we found that probably the most successful organizations were those that had both a fleet manager and a sustainability manager. So they were at a scale where not only the sustainability manager was important because it was kind of a signal that A, the organization was committed to sustainability, and B, that they were kind of enough size that they had someone who could really, really focus on this, and it was their job to figure out how to create this plan. Smaller organizations could do it if they didn't have a sustainability manager, but it was really important that they were like super, super committed, because the biggest challenge was the time commitment.
Great, thanks. And this is a question for Nick that's in the chat, which was to Puget Sound Energy. At this point, Amazon is operating the largest fleet of EV trucks with their Rivian delivery vehicles, and these have largely been located in Puget Sound Energy's territory. So what were the lessons learned from that addition of a big fleet of electric vehicles, and what utility upgrades were required? And they also are asking about the typical timeline for something like that.
Right. So those Amazon projects didn't really run through our up and go programs. I think those kind of dealt with some of the larger upgrades that they were doing throughout the territory. So I can't really speak the specifics of Amazon's installations. I know that they did apply for one of our pilot programs and ended up not participating just due to the service agreement. They wanted to make some changes to it, which we couldn't do. So that was kind of our experience working with Amazon there. As far as timelines go, I've mentioned this before, but it really depends on the size of the project and what type of like transformers we're upgrading to. Like three-phase power is going to take 12 to 18 months lead time. So the larger the project, the larger the timeline is kind of the way to think about it. So I hope that somewhat answered your questions there.
Great. And the final question we had, and I'm almost certain that no one is allowed to answer this question, but do you recommend specific brands of chargers?
I can answer that. We're for City Light, as you mentioned, we're we're agnostic when it comes to the chargers we use. But what I would consider is the amperage. So if you want like a 40 amp or 80 amp charger, I would also look at if you have an 800 volt vehicle, so it's going to depend on the capacity of your vehicle. So I wouldn't necessarily look at the brand, but look at the amperage, if it's networking, if you can manage payment. So look at the features of the charger and then the needs of your site or how you're going to be utilizing that charger. That may be a better way to go about choosing your electric vehicle support equipment.
All right, we actually have one more for PSE that I want to get in here because I think this is a really good question. It seems that PSE offers a higher incentive for the managed offering. Does this mean that PSE decides on the technology / type of charger installed? And what about the installation company? Is that something that you all are requiring specific installation companies or some kind of preferred provider program?
Yeah, great question. So for our PSE turnkey solution, we have a kind of list of various charges that you can select from. It ranges from the juice box level 2 chargers. We have various amperages there. And then we also have DC fast charger options. We have, again, some ABB options as well as the juice box or the juice pump chargers. As far as the install partners, we are partnered with NLX, who then hires their contractors, who is part of a contractor network that they fully vetted and have approved, and they're all local area contractors. So once we approve a project, we provide it to NLX, and they'll then assign the contractor to it.
Great. Well, fantastic. Well, we're at time, and I know that a lot of folks are probably going to be wanting to get on to other things this afternoon. We've got a few exciting things happening in our neck of the woods. So thank you all so much for joining us, and please join me in thanking Paul, the Breaking Barriers Collaborative, Nick with Puget Sound Energy, and Ethan with Seattle City Light. Thank you all so much for sharing all this great information about fleet electrification, EV charging. We're really excited to see this shift as we all work towards reducing our transportation emissions here in the Puget Sound region.